Coming in at 5, the hanging body. Now, this photo has no backstory, which somehow makes it even more terrifying. In the picture, we can see a very wholesome looking family snapping a pic with their 2 young children. Nothing wrong with that, right? What could possibly be wrong with that? Well, if you look to the left of the family, you can very clearly see a hanging body joining in on the fun. Face down, arms dangling, and faceless. Horrible. Looks as though someone fell from the floor above and got snapped mid-fall, but let's be real, it's clearly a ghost friend wanting to make it big on the interwebs. What is more frightening is that the family appear completely unfazed by the dangling body. Whether they didn't see him or the pic was snapped before they could react, we have no idea, but regardless, it's horrifying to look at, and makes you want to check all of your old family pics to make sure there are no mysterious friends dangling from above.
Number 4. iPhone 1920. Now, if you're pretty active in that aforementioned time travelers caught on footage community, I'm sure you've seen this one as well, but I'm sure we've got some new viewers too, so let's take a look at it. An excerpt from the 1928 film The Circus, starring Charlie Chaplin, an old silent movie about a penniless clown joining the circus. Probably the biggest laugh riot of the late 20s. It would already be a notable piece of American film history, but among those who hunt the truth, it might contain proof of a time traveler. A woman can be seen walking through in the background, wearing unnotable attire for the time period, but holding something up to her ear, which she appears to be talking into? What? As she walks by, it looks eerily like she's talking into a mobile phone of some sort. One has to wonder if she's getting good reception. I doubt Verizon had as many satellites in the 20s. Still, it's hard to deny that it definitely looks like she's talking into a cell phone. Now, some skeptics have offered some possibilities for what it could be, as skeptics are wont to do, with the most popular theory being that it's just a hearing aid of some kind, and the poor woman is just trying to hear better. Another slightly more cute suggestion is that the woman is just a bit camera shy, and is trying to cover her face as she walks by. Or, also a possibility, she could just be an old woman talking to herself and she's having a moment. I've got to say, if she is a time traveler though, she is doing a very sloppy job letting herself get recorded and analyzed like this. Or maybe that's exactly what she wanted. We may never know, but since she's such a popular time traveler, you'd think by now someone would have tried to travel back in time to this incident just to get the facts and finally put a close to the case, right? If no one else will, I will. Number 3. Time traveling car. This next video, footage from a dash cam in Russia from a patrol vehicle uploaded to YouTube, has garnered millions of views and lots of puzzled viewers. Take a look. We can see a fairly ordinary scene, a blocked up intersection and jam-packed rush hour traffic. As the car in front of our car starts to drive forward, it turns to the left and we see another car appear out of completely nowhere, like it just materialized out of the ether. Now, the most logical, sound, and scientific explanation is obviously that this car is a ghost, but let's try and take this seriously for a bit here and use our brains and think rationally. It is possible that this is a Back to the Future situation, and this car is traveling through time and just happens to be materialized careening through this intersection. I mean, when you watch this clip, it really does seem like this car comes out of nowhere. You don't see it at all until you do. Now, unfortunately, a strong bit of evidence against the time travel theory is that we don't see any blazing tire treads on the road, which is a universally recognized sign of proof that a time traveling car has been through here. Still, until we get a scientist of some kind to take a look at this clip and explain to me indisputably what is happening, I am resigned to say that this is absolutely time travel. Number 2. Pandora's MacBook. Take a look at this ancient Greek statue. It depicts a young girl offering something of note to what looks to be a noblewoman accepting the gift. Taking a look at the gift though, it looks suspiciously like it's a little girl trying to show an older woman something on her laptop. I mean, look at it. It's even got charging ports in the side. And it doesn't look like there's a USB slot though, so we have to assume it is history's first MacBook. Typical. Now, skeptics argue that it could be a depiction of a very hollow chest or a thin chest, but if this little girl is supposed to be offering the noblewoman a gift, I would say what good gift is going to come in a package that small? At best, it's a gift card, which is absolutely terrible, says you weren't thinking about it at all. It seems a lot more likely to me that someone traveled back to ancient Greece and maybe left their laptop somewhere or offered it to the people as a gift of technological prowess from the future. Imagine traveling to an ancient civilization and showing them a MacBook. You would be heralded as their god. And if you showed them Fortnite, oh, they would be writing myths about you for eons. What if over the years, all the things that have been described as being godly, mythical powers were really just time-traveling pranksters going back to mess with the time stream a little bit? I'm very confident that if humanity ever does attain the ability to travel through time, teenagers will mostly use it to pull pranks and create irreversible damage to the timeline. In fact, I am almost certain that has already happened, given how odd the last couple years have been for us. Number 1. Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves may very well be the greatest actor of all time. A big statement, I know, but it is a hill I will protect with my life. Name a bad Keanu Reeves performance. You can't. From Neo to John Wick to Johnny Silverhand all the way to Theodore Logan III, Keanu Reeves always delivers. And it makes sense because he's been acting for a very long time. Maybe a very, very, very long time. There are an alarming amount of paintings and photos throughout history of people who appear to be the stunning image of Keanu Reeves. Now, the most likely answer, of course, is that Keanu Reeves has been traveling through time several times to research and prepare for whatever role he needs. Here he is as King Charlemagne, who was buried hurriedly in cold weather, perhaps as a way to cover up that the actor had to leave the role and there was nothing to bury. Here he is as Paul Mounet, a French actor who appeared in multiple silent films, who would later go on to be a professor. When Mounet passed, his body was never found, probably because he had to travel back to our timeline to be on The Tonight Show. Worth noting is that when directly confronted about his possible immortality or latent time-traveling ability by Jimmy Fallon, Keanu did not outright deny it, instead only offering the quote, "We're all stardust, baby," which is absolutely something a man who has seen the depths of the cosmos would say. In a 2014 interview, when questioned about giving away the sum of his Matrix earnings to the stunt crew, he responded, "Money is the last thing I think about. I could live on what I have already made for the next few centuries." And maybe he already has.
Coming in at number 5, we've got a mummy on a ghost ship. You heard me. It's a mummified body on a drifting ghost ship. It's hard to imagine the circumstances required to have a paranormal crossover event like this, but it happened. The picture, pardon the pun, made waves on the internet when it started circulating over a decade ago. A group of sailors came across a half-submerged vessel and entered to see if everyone was alright. They then came across what appeared to be a grey, mummified man slouched over one of the tables, photos and supplies strewn about the cabin. This terrifying photograph was then taken. Originally, people had thought the man had been drifting for years considering his preserved state. However, an autopsy that was performed soon after discovered that he might have died much more recently, and the mummification process took less than a week. Surprising, but apparently very possible thanks to the heat and sea breeze providing perfect preservation conditions. Afterwards, the estimate was pushed to about a month dead at sea, but still far shorter than anyone originally thought. For those of you that are thinking paranormal or mutinous death on the high seas, you'll be a little disappointed. The man was sailing solo after the death of his ex-wife and had a heart attack. Still though, that doesn't discount the possibility of him leaving his ghost upon the ship. A captain always does go down with his ship, but he's not always discovered in such a state.
Coming in at 4, the story of Lisa. Now, this is the story of a girl's imaginary friend called Lisa, who she decided to bring to life in a series of incredibly creepy drawings, beginning with an innocent enough looking picture of the two friends with the caption, "I miss Lisa. Daddy is really busy at work. He didn't come home at the weekend. Mum is angry with him. I'm going to write a letter for Lisa." Nothing wrong with that. Clearly there are some personal problems going on at home and the young girl has found solace in her imaginary friend Lisa. However, the drawings continue and grow increasingly more concerning. The next one shows the young girl, once again with Lisa, but now a man that we can assume is her dad. The caption reads, "Yesterday Lisa and me went on a long walk until the moon came out. Daddy got really mad and said Lisa is stupid and fake. Lisa got sad and disappeared. Today she didn't come to school, but Miss Stigman said Mrs. Monroe won't come back." Right, okay. She's introducing a bunch of new characters now and I'm getting lost. So let's move on to the next picture. This one now shows the little girl sitting alone amongst the flowers. It reads, "Dear Lisa, I miss you. Please come back. I'm sorry when my dad was mean. You're my best friend." Well, this is just getting sad now. The next picture shows the little girl holding Lisa's hand and a woman that could be her mum or a teacher. I guess we'll find out. It reads, "Today Jonathan Parker stole my pencil sack. Mrs. Digman couldn't find it, so she made him give me his pencil. Lisa came to school too, but Miss Digman can't see her, but she said she believes that Lisa is real." Oh, how sweet. There are a few more drawings, but we're going to jump right to the end. We need to fear, guys. We need to feel that fear. The next one reads, "Today I tried to plant a flower in the yard. I tried to plant it by the sandbox, but Lisa said that's where her daddy is sleeping, so I planted it in a cup of dirt." Right, okay, great. And the final picture is where really hits the fan. It reads, "Lisa came back yesterday. She said sorry for leaving, and I told her my dad won't come home. Lisa said Mrs. Monroe and him are sleeping like her dad. I hope they wake up soon." Right, okay, cool. So Lisa was upset that the girl's family slighted her, so she just went and slayed them all. Great, cool, amazing friend Lisa. In at 3, Creeper. Now this is arguably everyone's worst nightmare. Imagine you're home alone, it's a wintry night, nothing out of the usual occurs. You go to sleep. all is well. But when you wake up, you find this. The caption reads, "I was home alone last night while my parents were out of town. It snowed off and on for most of the day and night. I woke up the next morning, and as I was going to the kitchen to get breakfast, I noticed I wasn't the only one here last night." Yep. Terrifying. Now if you can't see what I'm talking about, look outside. In the untouched snow you can clearly see footprints leading towards the sliding door and then away again, meaning some creeper in the night approached the house, scoped it out, and then fled for some unknown reason. Horrifying. This is exactly why I live 38 floors up in an apartment. In at number 2, anti-freckle treatment. There are two things that terrify me about this picture. One, it is unfathomable to me why anyone would want to get their freckles removed. I mean, yes, we're living in a different time now where you can cover up anything with a hefty supply of makeup, but to go through an ordeal like you see in this picture is absurd. Secondly, I mean, just look at it. Everything seems so elaborate yet completely unnecessary. There's a pole in the girl's mouth, presumably for her to bite onto, because I can imagine removing freckles involves some sort of laser treatment or at least burning in some way. The mechanism that is holding her head in place and covering her eyes is just downright terrifying. The entire thing baffled me so much I went over to Reddit, and these are some of the things folks had to say. One user said, "I think I remember it being dry ice. The mouth and the eye covers are pointless. I think they're supposed to protect you from the fumes." Makes sense. Another user went on to say, "Holding the eyeballs in place is very important when removing freckles." Agreed, very important. Makes no sense. So dumb. And lastly, in at number 1 we have group picture. This picture terrifies me for a handful of reasons. I don't know what it is about children in gas masks. I mean, morally, yes, we shouldn't have to live in a world where children wear gas masks, but the visual is what makes this truly horrifying. Now this picture actually has quite the interesting backstory. It comes from a tiny island off the coast of Japan that had around 3,000 residents. One particular day though, an alarm sounded, forcing all residents to pull on their gas masks and gather together in the center of town. Residents of the island are forced to carry with them gas masks at all times, due to the fact that the town resides right next to Mount Oyama, an active volcano that has erupted several times in the past. Specifically in 1940 it erupted, killing 11 people from the nearby town, with the most recent eruption occurring on July 14th, 2000. Now in 2019 residents are not forced to carry gas masks with them, but living on that island does still hold many risks.
Number 5. Time hipster? This one's an absolute classic in the time travelers caught on footage community, of which there are dozens of members. This strange photograph that's made the rounds of a man who looks like he's stepped out of time. The photo was taken in 1941 at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Canada, but when the photograph was included in a digital gallery in 2010, the internet instantly took to the guy in the crowd who looks like he just walked out of a crypto startup or had just come back from axe throwing and hitting the barcade. This guy is dressed in surprisingly hip clothes, looks like he's wearing contemporary shades, and kinda looks like he's holding a DSLR camera. You'd think a time traveler would be bringing back something a little bit more extravagant, but you know, maybe it was all they could afford. He could have spent all that money on those sweet shades and that cool shirt. Did he come back in time just to get some snaps of a bridge reopening? It seems like you could probably shoot your shot a lot higher if you were messing with the space-time continuum and all that. Nonetheless, the image of the well-dressed hipster in the crowd has sparked a lot of debate, since he definitely doesn't dress like he's from the 30s. Those shades are cooler than anything I've seen in that time period. Underneath what looks to be a contemporary hooded sweatshirt as well, he's wearing a Montreal Maroons jersey, a hockey team that played from 1924 to 1938. So either he's just very hip for the time, or he planned a disguise ahead of time to blend in with the locals. My theory? This guy knows all the best vintage stores are getting cleared out, and he's time traveling, going back to score vintage shirts from the appropriate time period. That Maroons jersey would definitely be a flex in 2022.
Coming in at number 4, we've got a shell-shocked World War I soldier. War is hell, as many who've experienced it will tell you, but it's hard to fully understand unless you've been there. This picture provides a glimpse into the madness of the battlefield through the eyes of a badly shaken man. In the First World War, many soldiers suffered from shell shock. This is a condition brought about by the heavy explosions and constant stress of wartime on the front lines. They would struggle with sleep and panic at any loud noises. Tinnitus, headaches, dizziness, tremors, all painful side effects of the many battles. Often they would never fully recover, developing symptoms of PTSD before the term even existed. Of course, the soldiers suffering from shell shock often exhibited the well-known stare. Doctors scrambled to find treatments for the symptoms as they looked into the far-off eyes of the men who'd been deeply damaged by the fighting going on. The idea that shell shock might be a mental ailment rather than a physical one didn't even cross their minds until later on. The symptoms became associated with cowardice, which didn't help sufferers either. But if you look into the eyes of this shell-shocked soldier, you'll understand a little better how terrifying war can be. Sneaking in at number 3, we have an uninvited guest. This photo, posted on Reddit by user Fat and Depressed, is supposedly from his smart home doorbell camera. It's scary for a whole bucket of reasons. Number 1, anyone who's seen The Purge will immediately activate their fight or flight response. 2, it's low res and black and white, so who knows what could be hiding in the pixelated shadows behind our masked figure. And 3, it was taken on a gosh darn doorbell security camera. Those things freak me out. I don't want them anywhere near me or my house. It's an affront to privacy across the board. But then again, I'm broadcasting my face across the World Wide Web, so what do I know? Back to the photo itself, just look at the terrifying blank-faced mask and the posture of the person underneath it. Honestly, I'd rather not know if some creepy mask-wearing lunatic decided to stare at my front door at 3 AM. Those are details that can very well stay hidden. Do you think the person was looking to start a home invasion, or were they just a creepy suburbanite looking for some cheap thrills? I wonder how many more houses they visited. Coming in at number 2, we've got the Hiroshima nuclear shadows. On August 6, 1949, an atomic bomb was dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed, and the bomb left an indelible mark on the country. Nowhere was this more apparent than on the steps of the Hiroshima branch of the Sumitomo Bank. It was here that a literal human shadow of death was left, a dark mark that remained to show where a person was moments before being killed. Yoshito Matsushige photographed this horrifying monument to destruction and included the legs of a journalist to provide some context and scale. According to the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, it's thought that someone was sitting on the steps outside the bank waiting for them to open up for the day. The bomb struck, and the immense heat produced burned the surrounding stone white, leaving the early riser's shadow behind. The story of who the person is still up for debate, as some claim they were entirely vaporized while others say their body was recovered. The vaporization theory doesn't hold up to modern scientific analysis, but that doesn't change the fact that nobody's quite sure who they were or where they went. For years, the shadowed steps remained in front of the bank, with a fence being erected and soon after tempered glass being put up to prevent deterioration. Eventually, the stone around the shadow was cut out and then donated to the Peace Memorial Museum, where it still is today. These burned steps are horrible proof of the destruction man is capable of. And finally at number 1, Regina K Walters. This is probably one of the most disturbing photos I've ever seen, and there's nothing explicitly upsetting about it. But once you hear the story behind it, your stomach will churn. In 1990, truck driver Robert Rhodes was prowling the highways. See, he wasn't just transporting cargo, he was also preying upon hitchhikers and truck stop sex workers. He was no fresh-faced killer either. He'd been doing this since the 70s. After killing a young man and torturing his wife for over a week, Rhodes picked up 2 teenage runaways by the names of Regina K Walters and Ricky Lee Jones. Jones was killed and disposed of relatively quickly, and Walters was kept behind to be tortured. During this time, he cut her hair and would beat and assault her often. Based on patterns of bruising and the way her hair had grown in later pictures, investigators determined that she had been forced to stay with him for quite a long time. Many photos were discovered after the fact, including the one from earlier in this video. It seems like Rhodes had a gun on Walters and had forced her to wear the ill-fitting clothing pictured, her arms outstretched like a victim in a horror movie. What's worse is the houses visible in the background. Imagine being stuck in a situation like that, so close to people peacefully living their lives but being unable to call for help. Absolutely devastating. This picture is terrifying, tragic, and absolutely should not exist.